So basically, I have nothing. I don't have a presentation because I think I have everything in my mind, everything that I've been using LiveView, as I mentioned, a lot, and I know that I think was Andrew say that he's not big fan of live view testing, and I know how it works because the first project that I worked when I was I think was in California, a huge live view page without test, and I got so frustrated because one of my first tasks was testing it, and I had to learn how to test using live view, and so was really difficult. But when I started understanding some stuff in my career and about how test live view, one of the things that I always thinking myself more than 1 year was how can I really test live view and feel confident what I'm doing? Like uh, make these things working every steps, everything's working really well, very well tested. What I'm going to explain in this talk is basically is 80% about testing live view. I'm not going to show everything, but everything that I'm going to introduce here, it's more than enough to start testing live view. So our first mission when we are testing live view is your last result is to open to start your Phoenix app and test. When I decided to search a better way to provide this, I noticed that I have confidence tests, I have tiny live view pages, tiny components, and the responsibility very well distributed. So I noticed when I started using only two simple tools, the tools that it's really nice to use is test watch because it's going to provide a way for you to uh, executing your task without you need to execute, for example, mix task at any time. So it's going to provide you a better way to test your application faster and get a result faster, and also provide you, even if you want to create components and basically like UI or only HTML, this is going to be much more easier and faster. And I will show you and I will prove it. Another thing that you need is open browser, which is a native function that comes from live view. This is more than enough. And our last result is going to test our application like a normal user. But when you use only this powerful things, everything is going to be easier. And also, of course, this is important documentation, uh, live view documentation, because sometimes you will need to understand other things for testing. For example, render hooks, or what about if you have a click event and when you click and you go to another page, how can you uh, create a test to test out the full path? So live view documentation will provide everything for you. Basically here, but 80% of your time, what you're going to use is open browser. Um, is everyone here knows how or have you guys tested live view application or not? Or have a chance to use live view? Or I'm new, I never used live view before. So I'm just asking because I can explain this 80% during our conversation. That's why I'm asking.
That would be awesome.
So what I'm gonna do is, okay, I'm going to show 80% of everything that we're gonna use in your applications, okay? So let's go ahead. I think our first step is to install this library. So it's really straightforward. Test Elixir, watch. This is more than enough for us. So it's straightforward. You only need to copy the dependency and install it. Make steps.get, and this is more than enough. So one of the things that's really cool is, and I really like it, this from Elixir is Elixir will guide you to write a good test. So why I'm saying this? For example, we are going to create we need to create a page, a live view page. Let me hide this. And one of the things that we're going to do is start always with our test. So test Ohio Elixir Web. As you could see, it's a normal Elixir application. We don't have the live view folder. So we're going to create, for example, maybe Joe live test.exs. So this is going to be our test, but I don't like to always execute like test every time. So what I'm gonna do is using the watch. And as I mentioned to you, Elixir will guide us to write a good test. So as you could see, it's a really new application. Sorry, I should execute the test the first time. So, but fortunately, this computer is a little bit fast. So
you have to put that under tools, right? Fast computer.
yeah, fast computer definitely. So for now, we're going to work on this folder right here. Oh God, we don't have the I don't have the database, but what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna use the database in this case. So, but as you could see, the test is still running. So actor will not be executed. So again. Oh, sandbox. Oh, okay. So sorry about that. I need to create the database. Sorry. Actor.create. Again. So this error, it's about the new Phoenix installation. It's straightforward to solve. So I think they forgot about it. So you only need to get rid of this. Then we're not gonna have the error, or it should disappear. Why?
I think you deleted it out of your supervisor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
There you go. So first step, it's saying that the directory does not exist. So what we're gonna do is create the directory and create the file. So now the test is gonna be run again, red green refactor. First we need to create our module. So we have our module. To test using web, we only need to go to support, and then we have the connection case. So we can just go ahead here and say, I think it's used connection case. And we'll have this enough for us. In our first test, I always start using this way, load main elements. Why? Because sometimes I know that we like testing behaviors, but what about if the PO or the UI and the UI team decides like, hey, we have this phrase and we don't want to change it, or if someone change it, what's going to happen? So I like testing messages and everything in LiveView because it's really easy. So and LiveView provide us a really nice tool to do that. So that's why I like testing messages as well. And our first step to test our application, we need to have a page. We need to have a path. So when we to use that, we need to use Phoenix Live View test. This is more than enough for us. And now we are going to pass our connection. Our connection comes from the connection case, and we're going to create our route, which is going to be Joe. And this live always return for us the HTML, the view, and okay, I don't know why okay, but I know because sometimes we have like redirect. So sometimes it's useful test as well. And but the most important for us is we need to pay attention about the view and the HTML. Uh, I would spend a lot of time explaining how view works and the HTML, but the main important, the key for this talk is about the HTML and the view. I highly recommend, this is my thoughts and what I learned, never test this guy because most of the time when you test, for example, you want to check if um, you are creating an invoice and you have a progress bar, and this is 100%. But what about if you have a definition in your HTML about width is 100%? So it's going to be confused. Your test, I'm sure that your test will pass, even if you refactor. That's why I don't like using this guy for testing. My experience, most of the time, it's almost unuseful. But for now, but we can talk about it later. But I think we need to keep focus on Vue. Vue have a lot of things, and two things that's really important in your Vue is you can isolate your HTML, and you have socket attributes, and sometimes it's important when you have the process ID to create backend message. I, I don't know if I'm gonna have time to explain it, but I'm going to keep focus now and create our first step. What about we need to have the Joe page, and we need to check if we have a message. For example, we need to check if we have a message saying that hello Joe. So what we're gonna do is using the has element. As I mentioned to you, 80% of your time testing LiveView is using has element, function, render, and render click. Most of your time, you're gonna use all of the elements. I'm going to explain the difference between them during this talk, okay? So now we need to check if we have a message saying Joe. So what I'm gonna do is, and we need to find the element. Right now, for example, we have ways to test using the ID classes, but one of the things that I and Joe discussed is, and we saw some articles. What about if you use data role? So when we use the data role, it's you have to write a lot of things, but when you have ID and then we have class CSS ID and CSS class, it's about attributes and styling your page. Data role and data ID, it's better for testing to find the elements and to give the name properly. Uh, it has been working a lot, and it's really nice tool as well. And when we do it, for example, we need to check the name if it's Ian. So As I mentioned, LiveView will guide us for testing. So the first error is because we don't have the route. So now we need to create this route. So you can go ahead to your router. Unfortunately, Phoenix and Alexa does not give it to us. And we need to have live Joe. We will give a name to our page, maybe Joe Live. Joe Live. I think this is enough. Now it's saying to us that we don't have the module. So we started when we didn't have the directory, then we didn't have the route, and now we don't have the module. So now we can only create our module. So Joe live.ex. So now we have the module. What's going to happen now? Joe live, it's undefined or private because we don't have a definition. What is this module? So we can say like, if this module is a page or a component. So we're gonna, is it okay if I don't explain where these elements comes from? For example, router or live and these stuffs, or you guys want me to explain it?
I think you can move forward where you're at.
Okay, I'm gonna move forward. So we need to have a page. And when you need to create your page, you can use a live view. When you have it, it's saying that, hey, you don't have the render to create your HTML. So it recommend us to create the render or recommend us to have the Joe Live HTML. So what we're gonna do is create our Joe Live.html. And as you could see, LiveView is guiding us to have the elements. Now, I'm going to create a span saying that we have the data role, name, and we have the text, Ian. And there you go. Now, if everything is working, I want to make sure that my page is working as well, but I don't want to stop my test. For example, when you are coding live view, one of the things that's happening is, hey, my test is working. I'm going to stop my application and stop my test application and start running my application. In our case, what we're gonna do is keep testing, and I wanna see if my browser is okay. And now seems that everything's okay. We have the Ion test here, text here, and seems that our application is working. And now let's discuss about those properties that we have here. So you can read the documentation, you can just pass your mouse and understand how it works. But mostly, the most difference between all of them is has element is more assertive. For example, I want to check elements in my screen on my screen. For example, I want to check if the button is there. I want to check if the text is there. I want to check if, for example, uh, load the what I have inside the tag is working correctly. When you have the element is, hey, I want to isolate a piece of code in my screen. For example, I want to check, for example, we can have like a huge text, and I want to check it. So when you use the has element, for example, I'm gonna say data role. I'm gonna say text. I'm gonna say that, for example, I have like 50. I want to check if I have this text in my screen. So when you do it, let's check if it's going to work, and I will explain why it does not. So let's have our div, and what I'm gonna do is just paste this text here. We're gonna say data row text. And as you could see, the text are the same, but it doesn't work because, for example, if we check this element on our screen, the text doesn't have this configuration. So when you need to check it, it's better use the element. For example, we can have element, and when you render the what we have in this tag, say pumpkin, as you could see, we have a lot of text, and the difference are the space and the backspace as well. So if you paste this text here, you'll see that it's a little bit hard. You see that the difference is between them are the spaces. One of the things that I like using the element is, what about if I just check piece of this text, for example? This is gonna work, and then you can see that we have the text, but it's up to you. You need to understand what is the best way to use this guy. Also, I like using this guy when we have a button. For example, I want to have a button. For example, I want to show name, for example, and this is a button, and I'm gonna say render click. And when I click on this button, instead of show Ian text, I'm going to refute this guy, and I'm going to say assert, and this is going to appear Joe. As you could see, I have the open browser here to check what's happening. So when we do it, as I mentioned, LiveView will guide us to test. So one of the things that's happened is that we don't have the element show name, and we don't have a render click event here. So we need to create that. So what we are going to do is, let's create a button with this data, using this data row. I'm gonna say like show, and I'm going to use data row show name, and we don't have Phoenix click attribute. As I mentioned, Live Elixir, it does not work only with LiveView, but work as well with the whole Elixir app. For example, if you want to test APIs, GraphQL, even context, it works real well. So it's saying that we don't have Phoenix click attributes. So let's include it. I'm going to say show. So now what we have, handle event is undefined or private. So we need to have this handle info now. Info, which is it's saying that the event must be shown. We don't have params, and we have socket, and we're going to start no reply socket. And let's check if we clicked on this button, and as you can see, sorry, it's handle event. So as you could see, we still, if we go to our test, we still have Ian in our application. So let's change it a little bit. So we have the mount. I'm not going to explain the LiveView cycle. And one of the things that we're going to define is we are going to have sign socket name Ian. And if we go to our Joe page and say name, now if we go to our application, the text is still Ian here. So we need to change it to Joe. So what we're going to do is we can go ahead to our socket and we're going to say assign name Joe. Just to show you, we are clicking on the element. So when we do it, there you go. We have the result. Now, as I mentioned to you, our last result is to start your Phoenix app and test. So if you go ahead, start your Elixir application, go to localhost, go to Joe path, and when you click, there you go. It's working. This is our first step. I would like to hear from you guys. What is your thoughts? What did you guys think about it? Or if you have insights or ideas.
This is my first time really seeing the Phoenix LiveView test library being used, and I think it clears up a lot. I looked at the documentation briefly, but I hadn't actually used it, and it seems like a clear-cut way to test something like this. Can you make separate actions on an element? Like, could you fill out a form and do more complicated things than just a click? Okay.
Definitely, we can do that right now. I don't know if we have 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, feel free
about
to
20.
take the rest of it. Yep.
Yeah, let's try creating a form. Let's try creating insert let's try creating a form, but definitely it works. For example, as you mentioned, let's create it. So what about if we have, for example, we're gonna have a form. So to use that, as I mentioned, we have the documentation. So you can use like LiveView test right here. This will provide for you everything that you need. For example, you can get a form, and let's understand how it works. So you need to have an ID, and for example, you're going to pass the user and the name. So what about now we have our LiveView test. I'm going to stop this. And what about if you want to create a form? For example, we have a cert view. We can just copy it. You can just copy this guy. Instead of validating if we have a text, what we're going to do is insert user. I'm going to say Parker. And after we finish this form, what we're going to do is check if you have like, for example, field has element data name equals Parker and text Parker. So what about if we?
Hey Gus, do you mind if I add something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this touches on something that we talked about a lot. And when we talk about LiveView testing getting you 90% of the way to Wallaby, which would be browser testing. And I think at this point, when you were submitting that form with the name Parker, and we're going to do a new user, I think a lot of people's instincts would be, I'm going to go reach into the database and see if the user's there. But
yeah,
but Gustavo did the right thing here, in my opinion. It said, well, the user can't reach into the database. So if we're doing a front end testing, we probably shouldn't reach into the database either. So what else
yeah.
can we find on the page that would assert that this person got inserted? I just wanted to just call out that distinction of why you didn't reach into the database.
Yeah, in this case, we can use the database. I think it's straightforward. Let's start creating the form. So one of the things that we're gonna do is creating this form. So we can have, for example, form. Can I copy a form that I have here to move faster? It's really straightforward. So just copying this guy here, gonna be easier. But for example, I'm going to copy this form. We only need to have the name. Where's our test? Right here. So we only need to have the ID, form ID, and we need to have what else? Name field. So I think it's more than enough for us right here. I'm not going to talk about the PHX target or the validate, but we're going to be talking about this guys right here. So now, chain set not found. So we need to have a chain set. So to create a chain set, what we're going to do is, let's use the database. It's going to be straightforward. Like mix PHX gen context users name. I think this is more than enough for us. Mix acto.migrate. Sorry. So now using the form, what we're gonna do is alias Ohio Elixir users, and we need a change set. So our change set will be change user. We need to have a user. So what we're gonna do is Ohio Elixir users user, and now sign change set. Also we have name, I think. I'm gonna get rid of this, okay? Is it okay? I'm gonna give with Ian here. Oh, sorry, I forgot the socket. So now we have the chain set. So what's happened here is that we don't have the handle event receiving save. So what we're gonna do is we are going to have the save function here receiving the user, and what we're gonna do is let's insert create user. And after creating the user, I'm not going to keep focus on a lot of things, but we're going to receive the user. And we need to add this user in our application. So what we're going to use is the update. What is the difference between update and assign? Assign, you can replace the element, and update, you are going to add another element, or you're going to interact with some things that you have in your LiveView page. So in our case, we are going to have users. And I know, Joe, that you don't like it, but I'm going to use that capture function. So now we're going to have users list, and this is going to be a empty user list. Now let's check what's happened here. No function.
Probably some with that capture function. I'm just joking.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. So I don't remember what is the order, if it's like N1 user, I think. It still doesn't work. Why? Box selector. I've never seen that using LiveView before. What about if we have a list? I'm gonna keep the list, and I'm going to say user plus list. It's a flocky. What's happened? Where is, I don't know. Joe Live. I think it should work. Let me get rid of this. What about, I'm gonna keep the socket here. Now we got an error. Name not found. Okay. Here, that really matters for me. I never seen that, to be honest. I never seen that before using LiveView. What I'm gonna do is remove them. Now I have a list. We have the flocky test. Let me understand the params that we're receiving here as well. We have our save events now, but flocky test. Params is unused. It's okay. But this kind of error, I never seen.
Is Floki used as part of the find element in Phoenix Live, like the LiveView test library? I'm just trying to understand where Floki is being used.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What's happened here? Where's our test? So seems that Floki selector, like data name.
Can you go back
I
to
never.
your text?
Yeah. I
That
think
is
that
on line 12. Should that be? Does that need to have square braces around data name? Or no?
right here,
Line 12.
line
The
12.
data.
Yeah. So we have the view as element. Probably yes. So, data row. My God, sorry.
Oh,
I think now it's going to, another thing, I forgot to mention the attributes. I think now it's going to work. So now we have like expected truths and false. I think now we can move forward. Let's have the user now, and let's update our list users. And what we're gonna do is user and one. I'm gonna add a new element in our list. Okay, I forgot to mention here that we have a user and user. So now our test is still failing, but what about if we check our socket here? So we've got our socket. What about if we check the assigns? So assigns users. Let's check if we have the element here. And as you can see, we have the user. And now imagine that we have a list here. And in our list, we're gonna have a for user where it comes from users. And now we have data row user dot name. In our case, in our test, I'm gonna use this way. It's gonna be straightforward to test, okay? Username, and then we'll have user name.
I think your data role is just name and not user.name.
Yeah. You mean
On line 16, if you take out on your data role, I think you just want name and not username, user.name.
right here?
Yeah.
I know. I don't think so. Let's check it again. And there you go. It's working.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, view on browser, and we tested a form, and we can see Parker here. If you try to get the element before, I'm sorry. If we try to get the element before before we finish the form, it's going to work. And then we get the result. And we got our test. And if we start our application, localhost, Joe, Parker, and there you go. We've got the result after we finish our test. So I think our time has been finished. The things that would be important now. We saw how to use TDD. I mentioned the core elements, the core functions that you guys gonna use most of your time. Things that was missing, explaining how VLP work, how to test, handle info. But most of your time, if you create a good test using LiveView, handle info will be filled, for example, using the elements, submits, and other stuffs. But you can trigger this guy as well. And we still didn't talk about how components works, but we can talk about it on the next time, maybe. I think for now it's good. Let me know if you guys want to see anything else more using LiveView or ideas. what do you guys think about using those techniques that we saw a couple minutes ago?
So I think it was cool that you were able to submit a form. I'm sorry, create a form, and then using the test, fill data in the form, and then assert that the stuff that we put on the socket indeed showed up on the screen, proving that the form got submitted. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you for covering this. I had a quick question if you're open to taking questions now.
Sure.
Awesome. So you said that this gets you most of the way, you said 80% of the way with just Phoenix, the LiveView test library. What have you found that the 20% is, and have you reached for Wallaby and end-to-end testing to cover that?
No, when I say 80% is like open browser has element, render, and render submit. This is most of your time that you saw that elements. I mean the elements that I was using to test our application. 80% you're gonna use those elements. Elements has element, render submit, render click. This is 80% of your tests using LiveView. The 20%, I would say 20% you can go ahead to, oops, sorry. I think I didn't finish an Elixir application correctly. Let me check. There you go. The 20% is Phoenix LiveView test. You can check render hook. This is almost 5% is render hook depending of your application. But I would say render submit, but you saw that in your forms, but maybe let me check the elements. Assert patch, sorry. Assert, redirect. Oh, let me check. Follow, redirect, when you change the process ID between applications. Render change, when you need to validate forms. Render upload, when you are uploading files with LiveView. I'm sorry, I forgot. We have render here. Live redirect sometimes. Well, I think that's all, Parker. Most of our time is those elements here. And then when I mention LiveView documentation, you only need to use this guy here. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'd be curious to see more examples that like redirect to other pages, and also some that interacts like between dead views and live views. I think that's the two places where this really breaks down for me personally, at least. Like the ergonomics around the live redirect and getting things to be happy and do what you want them to do, I just can't wrap my head around properly. I think it's like the simple one-page kind of things are really nice, like super ergonomic, but the more complex stuff is what I struggle with.
So live redirect is getting deprecated, right?
Not deprecated. What's going to be deprecated is because we are using, for example, today redirect. instead of using the live redirect, we're gonna use like live redirect, like a link, like
Oh, okay,
HTML
I got you.
type. LiveView 1.8.
Yeah, so like on the front end side of things, I think those live redirects are going away for some kind of new syntax. But as far as I understand on this side, like when your live view redirects, you don't get that nice OK tuple back. You get like a live redirect struct, and it's just like weird.
Well, the difference between we have live redirect and we have live patch. The most difference is that when you use the live patch, we're going to reorganize the elements in your socket, but live redirect, you're going to kill your socket and recreate your page. Sometimes it really makes sense to have both. Also, I got a bug because instead of using the live redirect, they used a live patch, so was a weird bug in production. Seems that does not make sense, but that bug. Let me try to explain the bug. So what's happened? We had a. Do you remember about the pages Joe in settings? When we have like kind of navigation between the pages, between like tabs, we have tabs, and we have the live patch, but the behavior, the backend behavior was it's kind of complicated to explain that bug. I need to see the page and explain to you when
Yeah,
it
I
makes
don't
sense to
recall.
use.
Is
But
it
I
one of
got
those
a
things
bug.
where it's like it's crashing behind you and it's just kind of silently doing the right thing anyway, and you don't realize it?
Yeah.
I've had that happen a lot.
The reason the page shows you what you expected to do is because it crashed and came back up, not because it behaved properly.
Right.
Yeah, Zach actually gave a whole talk at ElixirConf this year about essentially they were accidentally crashing LiveView processes and sending an order of magnitude too much data and pegging the CPUs at 100%, but it was still working.
Yeah.
Which is just fascinating. Gustavo, I posted a link in the chat. They are apparently getting rid of, it's a soft deprecation, but they're getting rid of live redirect, live patch, and
Let me check here.
something else in a future version. But I think it's more like we know this is confusing, so we're unifying it all under the link component.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've
Yeah,
been
I like
confused
the
myself over
syntax.
it. So I'm kind of like, whenever I come in and use these things, I'm kind of like, how do I use that again? And I have to go look it up in the docs. I don't know that this is actually going to make it any easier for me, but I do
Yeah.
appreciate that they're trying.
The current implementation is also slightly broken for like custom.
I'm sorry?
Andrew, we lost you at I think you were going to say custom something. I think your audio might have crashed. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, did that not come through?
I think your audio crashed about a minute ago.
Oh, that's very funny. No, I was just saying something about there was some kind of bug around those live redirects and stuff with custom elements we ran into on our project. We had to file a big bug report and couldn't put your own stuff inside of a live redirect, I think it was. So yeah, hopefully the new links will be nicer. Was the long and the short of all that.
Gustavo, I learned a couple things from you tonight. Like right out of the gate, I didn't realize that you could do a test.watch on a file that doesn't yet exist. That's fun. That's great for TDD.
Yeah, definitely.
It always makes me smile to watch Phoenix tell you how to fix your test, because it's pretty good at it.
Yeah. Guides you a lot. So when I realized this, I noticed that I was trying to be a good developer, but when I saw that Phoenix was guiding me to test, so I'm gonna make these things easier.
Yeah. It reminds me of an old Seinfeld episode. Why don't you just tell me what movie you want to watch?
Type in your zip code. Why don't you just say it? Why don't you
Yeah.
just tell me the movie you want to watch?
That's the one.
So there's something about test.watch that I think I could work into my workflow, but this is maybe just an aside, but I like to, when I'm pairing with people, especially when they're newer to development, I like to try to call the failure of the test before it actually happens and try to predict what it is. Because I find that when people are sort of reasoning about how things are going to fail next, that it helps them to understand the process more. And one of the things about test.watch that I haven't figured out exactly yet, maybe it's just waiting to save the file, knowing that it'll automatically run the test. I like that gap in between when I save the file and run the test, because that's like the space in which, when I'm pairing with somebody, I ask them, what do you think is going to happen next? And then we get to like make hypotheses about what's going to happen when we run it. So I guess that maybe it's just wait to save the file and have the discussion right beforehand. But I save so proactively now, it's just like it drops out of my fingers before I actually even think about it, because I've had enough times that I've lost data. I don't know. I have to think about how to integrate that with my workflow. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments about Gustavo's talk?
I appreciate you presenting today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it too. Parker, we can probably stop the recording now and have the rest of the conversation about that.
Will do.